Okay, so this is Captain Sam G, and I'm here today to tell you how to make the greatest Spider-Man game. And, hopefully some developers or something will catch wind of this. So, as I go through the video, I'm going to be stating absolute facts, absolute truths from the beginning, stating things that are just everyone can agree with, everyone knows it to be true, there's no arguing with it. However, as I go through the video, those facts will slowly turn more and more into just personal opinions that I have that could be argued with. But the things close to the beginning, it's just, that's how you definitely should make a Spider-Man game. There's no arguing it. Now first up we have web slinging. We all know that the greatest web slinging mechanics happened in the movie game Spider-Man 2 on the PS2 or Xbox. Now the reason for that, couple reasons. First off, momentum. If you're falling from a great height and you throw out a web line, you go fast because of the momentum you were building up from falling. You pick up speed over time as you're web slinging. If you're going around a corner, you continue the momentum, and it just feels a lot like you're throwing yourself along a line. Unlike, let's say, Spider-Man 3, where you're going along, you throw out a web strand, you swing, and then you almost come to a dead stop as the game sort of has to adjust itself as you throw out the next web strand. There's no momentum, no really travelling at a hell's pace, just wind through your hair, going super fast. No, there's none of that. It just strange web mechanics. But on Spider-Man 2 they got it right. However, it's not just about momentum. It's also to do with where the web line attaches. You see, except for like during the park areas where there are trees and it's a little bit iffy, most everywhere else in the city, when you throw out a web line, it actually attaches itself to a building. This means you can really control how your character is web slinging. You control how they're going through the city, how they're going around corners, and especially going around corners, and this helps with momentum as well. As you go around a corner, you throw out a web line, it hits the building, and as you're going around, that strand of webbing will hit the corner of the building because you're going around it. And that then becomes the new attachment point for the web line. Which means you are doing this really long, swinging arc going around the building, and then suddenly your web line hits the corner, that becomes the new attachment point, so your character will speed up because of physics. And that's just great. And it also means you can control how far forwards you're going or how high up, because you can release at certain times. However, as great as the web sling mechanics are in Spider-Man 2, they are heightened by just about everything else that the game offers. As you can see, I'm performing a jump. Pretty standard in any Spider-Man game, except for this handy little thing up at the top left. You see that yellow bar? As I hold down the jump button, it fills up. Now, this may not seem like such a big deal, but it absolutely is. Not only because I can control how high or how far I jump, but because I can keep that jump sort of in my inventory as I go around. I'm crawling up walls, web slinging, running around on walls, whatever. I keep that jump in my inventory, and whenever I want to use it, all I have to do is let go of X. And suddenly, I am launching myself up the wall or across the city or whatever. And it is just absolutely great to be able to hold that jump and keep it when you need it. So as soon as you land from a jump, you can just let go and you jump again. As soon as you land on a wall, you can let go and you're suddenly leaping off of it. And it's just brilliant to have that jump when you need it and not have to rely on, let's just see Spider-Man 3, for example. Yeah, that's not the kind of jump I wanted. I wanted to do a huge, amazing leap, but you can't really hold the jump, for starters, because in this game there's double jump, which is absolutely atrocious. Please stop putting double jump in Spider-Man games. It's just physics breaking. Spider-Man can't double jump. He doesn't have stupid, weird game powers like that. He has amazing agility and strength in his legs. Just allow me to hold the jump button and let me control how high or how far I'm able to jump. If I want to do just a little hop, I can do a little hop. If I want to do a mid-range jump or a super really, really huge jump, I am able to. Give me that choice. Allow me more control over Spider-Man. But you see, everything changes with this jump, because sprinting affects just about everything in this game, and it's just such a handy little button. I've already said about control, but this allows you even more control. So, I want to jump over to that building. What do? I sprint, and I do a jump, and I do a long jump. But hey, now I want to get up this building. So what do? I hold jump, but this time I don't hold the sprint button. So it affects the jump, so I can change how far and how high I can jump on an even greater scale. Again, I can't stress enough how great it is to be able to control Spider-Man to such an accurate degree. You see, as you go around this city, you can do whatever you want. I'm running from this building, and because I've been playing this game for a couple of hours, I can really predict just how far I need to watch that yellow bar slide up before I let go of X to make that perfect jump and land exactly where I want to land. And as I'm soaring through the air, I hold the jump button. As soon as I land, I can let go of it. And off I go. But you see, like I said, the sprint button doesn't just affect jumping. It also affects the web slinging. So you can go faster and faster, or you can hit the sprint button as you're at the top of a web sling arc and allow you to leap upwards really, really high, get some crazy air. However, I'd like to exaggerate these huge leaping jumps you have once you come off of a web line even more, like in Spider-Man Web of Shadows, where you come to the top of your web slinging arc, you let go at the right time, and you just soar over an entire building. It's so graceful and so majestic, just soaring over a complete building or two, just from the momentum and the arc of your swing, and it's just really, really great. But back to Spider-Man 2. Sprinting also affects wall crawling. Doesn't seem like much of a deal, but if you're trying to get somewhere, you want to get there fast. However, you might also be trying to fit through a tiny little vent or something, in which case you don't want to be going so fast because you're bound to go off track and accidentally miss it and then have to readjust yourself and try getting through that tiny little gap over and over again. So the sprint button for wall crawling, excellent feature. However, if you hit the wall and instead of just pressing the wall grab button and then sprint, so you wall crawl up it nice and quickly, if you hit the wall and hit the sprint button and the wall crawl button at the same time, this wonderfulness happens. Wall running. And it's just great. What is also great about it is you actually slow down as you're running up, because hey, Spidey's having to fight against gravity as he's running up this building. But with the power of jumping, you can launch yourself up, hit the wall running buttons again, and suddenly you are just tearing your way up this building. It is absolutely fantastic. And all of these things together, wall running and wall crawling and sprinting and jumping, it allows you to put together some amazing unique combos as you go around the city, and once again, actually controlling your character and doing these things for yourself with such a fine degree of control is spectacular. Let's just take Amazing Spider-Man, for example, where they take that out completely. You don't have all this amazing control. You can't do things exactly the way you want to do. Instead, you just hit a button and he launches himself and the game does it for you, which is incredibly boring. And again, the web slinging in this game compared to Spider-Man 2, absolutely abysmal. Okay, I admit, the web rush in Amazing Spider-Man is pretty cool. I mean, he pulls off some pretty amazing maneuvers going around the city when you use it. And it's also really handy in close quarters for fighting bad guys and seeing where you need to go to next and slowing the world down around you so you have time to think. But it's not good when it completely replaces the web slinging systems in Spider-Man 2. It's not good when it completely replaces something that gives you so much control. So, Have the web rush if you want it. It is really good in principle, but don't have it replace everything else. And still, I'm not done with Spider-Man's amazing agility. You see, you can slam into a building pressing circle and grab on, start wall crawling. You can slam into a building pressing circle and sprint at the exact same time and you start wall running. And yet, you can do neither. You can just hit into a building, not press anything, and Spidey will start sliding along it. And if you hold jump and let go, he does a wall jump. He doesn't even need to, he can just crawl up the wall if he wants, but nope. You can do wall jumps in this game if you choose. And that's the great thing about Spider-Man 2. There's so many options you have. You don't have to do everything. If you have a specific way you want to do something, you can do that. Or you can do something completely different. And it's just brilliant to have that choice. And again, the control. Also, when web slinging, you can just go really, really fast and do all these amazing tricks. However, you can also do something really, really nice. If you don't think you're quite going to make a jump, you don't think you're quite going to land on the building you want to, you don't want to just crawl up it. You can hit the web yank button and he will launch out a single strand and throw himself towards the building, giving you an extra 20 feet of jumping goodness, which is a hell of a lot better than a terrible, terrible double jump. However, let's go to Web of Shadows for a moment. What I'd also like is, if you press the web yank button but you're not holding a direction to yank yourself to, I'd like it if you could just do this. Pull yourself straight up, which is also great if you want to get up really, really quickly. And again, it's all about choice. If I want to yank myself straight up in the air via a web line, I want to be able to do that. If I want to do an enormous jump to get up somewhere, I want to be able to do that. If I want to wall crawl or wall run, I want to be able to do that as well. If I want to wall jump from wall to wall, you bet I want to be able to do that. I want to have so much choice and so much Spider-ness goodness. Now, Spider-Man 3, known for destroying the amazing spider slinging abilities of Spider-Man 2, but it did introduce something very, very helpful. Like I said with the web yanking, if I want to get myself to a building but it looks like I'm not quite going to make it, I can press the web yank button and I'll launch myself over, get an extra 20 feet of air. Spider-Man 3 introduces something as well. You see, if I'm hurtling towards the ledge of a building and I hit web yank, all it's going to do is launch me forwards, so I'll still hit the ledge of the building. And I don't want double jump in the game at all, so get rid of that completely. All I can really do is hit the wall, hit wall crawl, and climb up. But you know, it's kind of taking away the momentum of the whole thing. It's making me stop and do something that I didn't want to. What I wanted to do was land on that building, but unfortunately I just didn't quite have the momentum. I just didn't quite judge it correctly. Spider-Man 3 solves that. If you hit a ledge and hit wall crawl, he will automatically launch himself up immediately. I'd like it if this was just a little bit quicker and you could jump after launching yourself up a little bit quicker as well, so you could keep yourself in the momentum, just keep going. But yeah, hitting a wall right at the ledge and hitting the wall grab button and he instantly pulls himself up without this in Spider-Man 2, hitting the wall and you just stop dead and have to pull yourself up. I really like what Spider-Man 3 introduced. It's really good. And of course, just for the fun of it, allow me to swing around on poles and stuff by my bare hands, because why the hell not? Now this may not seem like such a big deal, but it absolutely is. Camera control. Once again, Spider-Man 2 got it right. Whilst I'm launching myself through the air, I don't want the camera to suddenly pan all the way over the top of me and it feels like I'm parachuting and it's really difficult to control where I'm going to land, like in Amazing Spider-Man. I also don't want the camera to instantly reset the moment I let go of the camera control button, like in Spider-Man 3. There were so many moments where I was trying to follow a target and the camera would just shudder back and forth, and it started to give me quite a bit of a headache. In Spider-Man 2, it's just great. you move the camera around very slightly and the camera actually pans and does what you want it to, and it doesn't shudder back and forth or jolt or anything and give you a headache. And something that really helps out web slinging, but keeps being done incorrectly, please, for the love of God, when I'm web slinging around going at super speeds and flinging myself all over the city, pull the damn camera back. I want to be able to see what I'm doing, not have a close-up of the emblem on Spider-Man's back. And another thing that doesn't seem like such a big deal, but the minimap for Spider-Man 2 is also perfect, showing you the location of where you need to go as well as how high or low it is. It may not seem like such a big deal, and it may seem like it's obvious and it could be easily recreated, and why are you harping on about this? Yet I haven't seen it done as well as in Spider-Man 2 as on any other Spider-Man game, even the one that came after it, Spider-Man 3. Nowhere near as good as a minimap system. Now, I'm a really big fan of trying to make superhero games about these fantastical beings with powers mere mortals can only dream of, slightly more realistic. I don't mean realistic in a gritty Dark Knight kind of way, I mean realistic in a, I'm playing as a superpowered being, why the hell am I having so much trouble fighting against these normal thugs? What I'm talking about is difficulty settings. Now there's two problems with difficulty settings. One is you get a game with difficulty settings and you can actually change the difficulty. In which case, playing on easy and fighting against thugs feels like how it should. You knock them out in 2 or 3 hits, they're just nothing, they do no damage to you whatsoever. They're chump change, you can just tear your way through them no problem. However, you then get to the bosses, these supervillains who are supposed to be on par or even more powerful than Spider-Man, and it's pretty damn easy to beat them. Or you play on hard, in which case you get the insane rush of fighting against someone so vastly powerful and you're really having to be on guard with your very life. And then you go away from the supervillains back to the normal, everyday thugs who are just standard human beings, and you're suddenly having trouble with them, having to punch them over and over and over again, and watching huge chunks of your health get taken out by these normal, everyday guys. And then there's the other problem, Spider-Man games that don't have a difficulty setting at all, and you just play through it how the game is meant to be played, in which case the thugs are a little bit tougher than you want, and the supervillains are a little bit easier than you want. So it's kind of bad all around. So what I propose is multiple difficulty settings. Just imagine, if you will, or hey, let me just make a really terrible paint picture. Multiple settings, so let's say you have easy, normal and hard, and you have that for thugs. Easy, normal and hard, supervillains, easy, normal and hard, I don't know, let's say robots or lizard men or symbiotes or something. Something that's supposed to be the in-between between normal people and supervillains. Now you could have multiple types of enemies, so you could have lizard men, symbiotes and robots all at once, and maybe you don't want to give away what kinds of enemies are in this game. They're supposed to be a secret, in which case just put enhanced enemies or something. That'll do. So if I want to have an experience that seems true and real for Spider-Man, I can set the thug difficulty to easy, so I can just go around blasting thugs in the face. They pose no challenge whatsoever to Spider-Man. I can set all the other types of bad guys to normal, and I can set supervillains to hard, and I will actually be able to feel the jumps in difficulty going between these different types of enemies that are supposed to be so vastly different and vastly differently powered. Or I can decide, you know what, I'm going to go for a challenge run and put all the settings to hard just because. You see, this is what I tried doing on quite a few Spider-Man games with difficulty settings whilst I was recording them. I'd play a mission fighting against normal people, and then I'd play a mission against supervillains, and I would cut the footage together so that I would fight the normal, regular, everyday, normal people on easy, and the big bad guys on hard, and it just really looked good. However, I don't want it to be increasing in difficulty all the time throughout the game. I still want normal, everyday, standard thugs just dotted around the entire game, so whilst I'm fighting against these robots or symbiotes or whatever, and they're posing a slight challenge to me, at any time I can then go and fight some thug, some purse snatcher, some whatever, and feel powerful again. Let's take Spider-Man 2 on the PS2 for example. The game just upped in difficulty all the time, so whilst you felt like a superhero at the beginning, suddenly there were these guys that posed a challenge to you and were actually difficult to fight pretty much all the time, and it made it worse that they were just normal guys. See, let's think about the Batman games, particularly Arkham Knight, just because that's the latest one I played. At any moment, you can just glide on down to a group of enemies that you know you can just tear your way through. And then you do. You just batter them, and you feel powerful and incredible, and these guys just can't stand a chance against you. And then you continue onwards with what you're supposed to be doing, and fight a guy who's actually challenging, and get your head punched in just a little bit. Speaking of worthy challenges to Spider-Man and seeing how powerful he truly is, what I'd also like are more feats of strength, but oh no. Let's take a look at Spider-Man 3. You see this? You see what I'm doing here? I'm hitting the corresponding buttons as hard as I can, as fast as I can, and instead of just lifting the object up, he sort of reps it. I mean, what's he doing? He's lifting it up and then back down and lifting it again, and that's just so awkward looking. What? I have no idea why this is like that. But yeah, put in more feats of strength. I want to be able to rip off metal doors and lift up cars and... Oh yeah, speaking of lifting up cars, let's go to Web of Shadows. Look at this! Look, I'm just lifting up a car and throwing it. I want more of that. I want to be able to see how strong Spider-Man really is. Oh, and whilst we're on the subject of button mashing to lift up objects or tear objects apart or whatever, that's fine, but please, for the love of God, do not introduce crazy QTEs like in Spider-Man 3. They were kind of fine at the beginning. Towards the end, they got insane. First time I played that game, the QTEs towards the very end, I had to retry them about 20 times. And what makes them particularly terrible is if you fail them, you also lose health. So if you fail them enough times, you lose the mission, and you have to do it again and fight the boss again just to get back to that QTE session, which you'll probably fail another time. So get rid of QTEs. Or if you have to do them more like Spider-Man Web of Shadows. They were up on the screen for quite a while before you had to press the button. And you know what, whilst I'm thinking about just mission designs that absolutely torture the hell out of me, let's talk about supervillain battle designs as well. You see this? You see me fighting against Sandman? You see that it's actually pretty difficult, and I'm having to dodge and jump and dive out the way and get my hits in where I can, and even though I'm making him vulnerable with the water, it doesn't just completely make Sandman vulnerable. It doesn't make him vulnerable to the point that he can do nothing and I just wail on him and then I run away and do the same thing again. That's what a supervillain battle is supposed to be like. Feeling that I'm on the edge of my seat and that at any moment I could have a fist slam into me. Not this. Not get Sandman wet and he's unable to fight back or anything and just repeat the action and it's just really easy. And what I certainly don't want is this. A giant Sandman. I don't want giant Sandman, I don't want giant Electro. You may think it's really grand and it's an easy way to make a mission seem really imposing and dangerous, but it hardly ever works. We all know by now, if there's a giant enemy, you just have him slam his hand against the ground and then you punch it or whatever. We all know that. We all know that. It doesn't trick us anymore. Stop it. Stop making giant bosses that are completely underwhelming. You may think a big giant boss looming over you is imposing. Not anymore. We know your tricks. You see this fight back here, Spider-Man PS1? You wouldn't think that this would be one of the greatest boss battles in history, but it is. It feels so imposing and dangerous because I'm fighting against Scorpion or Venom or whoever as hard as I can, having to dodge his hits really quickly and be very wary of his attacks, and it's just great. It feels like I'm playing Dark Souls, and you may think I'm joking, but I'm not. This is as difficult as it was me fighting against Smo and Ornstein. It really, really is. This, however, is not difficult in the slightest, so stop it with the big bosses and thinking that it makes it seem imposing, because it really isn't. This is also a bit of a letdown. I can't really fight the guy, I have to instead exploit a weakness. Sometimes it's done well, but most of the time it's not. I mean, really, really look at this. On hard, I cannot fight Shocker. It's ridiculous. Spider-Man 2 PS1 can't fight Shocker with my fists. Instead, I launch down boxes onto him and oh, that's it, he's done. That's pretty disappointing. This, however, is more like it. I'm fighting against a villain who's really powerful and I have to be very careful of, but I can also do no damage to him until I inject him with this serum, and then I can do damage to him, but he's also still very dangerous. Do you get it? If I need to exploit a weakness, I want it to still be a fight that I have to be very careful of, and I have to jump in and out of, and fight them with all I have. Not have them hit the ground and then web their hand or fight their hand. I mean, really, again, I can't stress this enough. Stop it with the big boss battles thinking they're super dangerous and really grand looking, and they're not. We know you just wait for them to hit the ground with their hand trying to punch you, and their hand gets stuck for whatever reason, and then you just punch it, and we know that. We know it. And certainly don't do this terribleness at the end of Spider-Man 3. This was the most boring battle in all of history. But yeah, having to actually use Spider-Man's abilities and jump in and out and fight for all you're worth, that is what I want to experience. And as I'm talking about supervillain boss battles, let's just talk very, very quickly about supervillain designs. This is good. This is great. This is not. This is good. This is great. This is not. It's pretty simple. Just stay true to the classics. Try and recreate what you know we all already love. It's very simple. Seriously. If you're designing Hammerhead, then design Hammerhead as we all know him. Don't decide, you know what, I'm going to put a bunch of spikes coming out of his head and he's going to be wearing mostly leather and chains are going to be wrapped all around him because I think that's cool. Just, no, stop it. Make the character as they're usually portrayed, and that will always be the best. And also, with Spider-Man, I really prefer this kind of red, this kind of blue, and the sort of thicker, more muscular gymnast-looking body compared to the almost strange, alien-looking, spindly Spider-Man with the big head. Stop it. Stop it. Another thing that should be talked about extremely briefly because it's very, very obvious. When talking about character design, get the voices right, will you? Now this is more like the overall feeling of the city that you get that I want to talk about. Now Arkham Knight managed to just completely get rid of the civilian equation. It's this huge city. How will people react to Batman coming down? Well, the city's been evacuated, so you don't have to deal with that. Now you could either do something like that where everything has gone to hell, so the civilians no longer in the equation apart from hostages and things like that. Or you could do it more like Web of Shadows, where civilians really, really react to seeing Spider-Man, and you get shouts out in the street as you web sling over them, or you land in the middle of a bunch of civilians. Just really think about how people would react to Spider-Man. They wouldn't just walk around like a bunch of mindless zombies as we've seen in other games. But hey, like I said, you could do the whole Arkham Knight or Web of Shadows type thing later on in the game where civilians are taken out of the equation, so you don't have to deal with all that. Oh, and if you do decide to have tons of civilians in the game, if there's a big shootout or a super villain boss battle going on in the middle of the street, make sure the civilians run the hell away. There's nothing more jarring than fighting against someone and a civilian just walks in between you, or what's going on? Oh, I'm playing a game. All right, I'm playing a game. And talking about the overall atmosphere of the city, I'd like to once again go back to Spider-Man 2. No wonder it's considered to be the best Spider-Man game currently. It's just so on point in a lot of things. But random crimes occurring, as well as sort of mission-type crimes that you can choose to do or ignore, really makes the city feel alive and that you've always got something to do and something to achieve and accomplish. I also think something that gives the city more life and atmosphere, as well as is just pretty cool going around and doing it, destructible environments. Man, I love it so much in Web of Shadows. I cannot tell you how many hours over the years I have wasted just jumping from rooftop to rooftop and punching down brick chimneys with my bare hands, just because it's cool. I love the idea of showing off Spider-Man's strength, and destructible environments is a great way of doing that, especially if you're fighting against supervillains and they're knocking your body through walls and all sorts. Also, when it comes to the incredible atmosphere of the city and what you're trying to achieve with it, don't ruin it by putting tons and tons of collectibles everywhere. I mean, not only does it break up the atmosphere of the city going around and everything's gone to hell, the world is being destroyed, or whatever plotline you're going for, and then spotting a nice shiny collectible that you need to pick up, and even worse, if there's thousands of them. Literal thousands of them. But if you really, really, really have to have collectibles in your game, or you're going for upgrades where Spidey will make himself more powerful over time or get different web abilities or whatever, if you're going for collectibles or upgrades, please, most games are doing it now. Have New Game Plus, so I can go through the game again and not have to worry about collecting everything and upgrading everything all over again. Also, it should go without saying, but Amazing Spider-Man really seemed to drop the ball with it. Have more than one save file, please. Now let's talk about some of Spidey's unique abilities. I'm talking Spidey Sense and webbing. So with webbing, once again, I want choice. I want choice of what I'm able to do. I want a combination of the PS1 games and the PS2 games. I want to be able to just completely web a guy up, and if they're a normal bog standard thug, they get webbed up completely and that's it, they are done. I want to be able to web pull, slam a guy into my chest or slam them into a wall, or spin them around my head and let them go flying into the other bad guys. I want to be able to web my fists so I can do more damage. I want to do a web shield thing so I can take a really big energy attack or something. I want to be able to do lots and lots of different things. During combos, I want to be able to press the web button and be able to launch out web balls that do damage. I want to be able to do so much. And I want to have the choice of being able to do it. However, what I don't want are these weird web constructs like in Spider-Man Shattered Dimensions or Spider-Man Edge of Time, where all I'm doing is punching the guy. And yet, instead of just punching the guy, Spidey makes these weird sort of Captain Universe type web constructs, giant web fists that come out from his hands and punch the guy, and it's just really strange. What is that? How is he doing that? No. Stop it. And with Spidey Sense, I'd like it to be like Shattered Dimensions, where you can see through walls and you can see your objectives and you can see items of interest and all that goodness. Along with Spider-Man the first movie game, where you're alerted to danger and you know you're going to have to jump the hell out of the way of something bad approaching you. However, Spidey Sense also integrates into the next part I want to talk about. Combat. I mean, isn't it obvious? That is a Spidey Sense going off above Batman's head. Now, it's a little weird that Batman has 360 vision and he can tell what's coming at him from behind, but it makes complete sense for Spider-Man. He has a Spidey Sense. Now, you'll remember what I said about fighting against supervillains and it needs to be really dangerous and they need to hop in and out and avoid hits, so doing it for that, not quite. You see, what I'd want is when I'm fighting against normal thugs and mercenaries, I keep saying thugs, I've said thugs like 100 times already, when I'm fighting against mercenaries and purse snatchers and all sorts, I want them to be nothing. I want it to be that if I hit a counter button as they hit me, I'll just slap them across the face and send them flying and that's it, they're done. But I also want to be able to hold a button where they can't do anything against me. I'll just dodge anything they throw at me because I'm Spider-Man. I'm insanely fast, they could never be able to keep up with me. However, when I'm fighting tougher enemies like robots or symbiotes or whatever, take that option out where I can just hold the button down and dodge whatever they have, but I'm still able to counter. Or, like in Batman, different enemies require different solutions, like the shield guys or the stun baton guys, all that jazz. However, when it comes to supervillains, have the counter option taken out completely. So I have to fight them, but they're just so fast on par with me that I can't just rely on my Spidey Sense to react and fight them and counter-attack them. I have to just jump out and actually control Spider-Man myself rather than hitting the counter button and relying on that. And when it comes to fighting in this Batman-esque way, I really like the insane speeds that you can build up in the Arkham games. I mean, it's just impossible for a human. I mean, just zipping around and fighting people just so crazily fast. But it suits Spider-Man so much. I would like the kind of speed that you get from Arkham Knight mixed with the 20-foot giant flips and everything you do in the earlier Arkham games. I mean, look at this. He does a 20-foot flip just to back kick a guy in the head. That's crazy. But, again, it suits Spider-Man a hell of a lot. And I really like the idea of being able to fight multiple foes at once. I think the best example of it in a Spider-Man game was actually really early on with the first Spider-Man movie game. I mean, look at this. I'm just ploughing through a bunch of guys like they were nothing. Just perfect. And I also really dislike it in Spider-Man games where when you go to punch a guy, Spider-Man doesn't instantly actually move towards them to lay the hit into their face. There were so many instances in Web of Shadows or Spider-Man 3 where I'd go to punch someone, but because they had backed up slightly, the hit just didn't connect. And I'd just get so frustrated. I mean, come on Spider-Man, you've got these amazing reflexes and speed, rush towards them and hit them. And what I really hate in some of the Spider-Man games are combos that actually knock the bad guys away mid-combo. So I'd be punching a guy, the hit would knock them back, and then my next couple of hits wouldn't connect. And Spider-Man wouldn't rush towards them to punch them, he'd just sort of stand there moving forward slightly, hitting at thin air. That was so annoying. And like with a lot of Batman's gadgets and different types of combos, I would like to implement the webbing, sort of like that. So I can just web them up or spin them around my head, but using it as part of a combo, he'll launch out a web blast like a batarang or something, or use it as a type of gadget sort of thing. Again, I just want the choice to be able to do lots of different things and play it in my own style. And another thing that I think should be brought back combat-wise, from Web of Shadows this time, should be super moves. It is amazing to see Spidey do something so fast and incredible and powerful as the super moves in this game. Another thing I'd love to include in combat is something that Web of Shadows introduced, and that's fighting on the walls. It seems like such a simple thing to put in, such an obvious thing as well for Spider-Man, and yet it's the only game that does it. And again, if you allow the player even more control and you integrate all the wall running and wall crawling and wall jumping and wall sliding and sprinting and all these different things, it will allow you to fight even better and go really fast. And I can just imagine jumping onto a wall, fighting a bunch of bad guys, leaping off, swinging around, and just never breaking momentum even when fighting a bunch of bad guys. And yeah, bring back wall crawling fighting. It was just spectacular. Now, as there's so many Spider-Man games, some of them are vastly different to others, in which case it's impossible to put them in any sort of chronological timeline. So what I'd like for the next great Spider-Man game that encompasses all of the things that I've been talking about is not to do another Origins game. I'd like it to be, again, a little bit like Arkham Knight, where Spidey is known as the greatest hero of all time, he's active, he's going around fighting bad guys all the time, and then a big event happens where he has to fight against the Sinister Six, or just something, a big plot line, a big plot line. But Spider-Man is already established as a superhero, and you don't have to start everything from the beginning again, or make up these strange new storylines. Like with Amazing Spider-Man, they went the whole geneticist route and did these weird, strange supervillains, and just have it as, we all know who Spider-Man is, we all know these are his bad guys, let's continue onwards from that, and take Spider-Man 1 and 2 and 3 and 1 and 2 on the PS1, and let's take all these games and just say that they're canon and that they actually happened. Again, some of the games that I've been playing, the Spider-Man timeline, the Spidey saga I've been doing, just say that all of that happened is canon. All of that happened, and Spider-Man is now at his life currently, and he's going to continue being the greatest hero of all time. Don't just reset and start everything again and change everything up in some weird way. Now, I know you may be thinking, come on, this is supposed to be about Spider-Man, stop mentioning Batman, but I'm going to do it again. You see, again, choice. What I'd really like is, even though I can take out all these mercenaries and just standard bad guys who are just human and non-powered, I could just jump down into the middle of them and batter the hell out of all of them. Or I could also use crazy Batman-esque stealth. Seriously, the stealth in the Batman games, particularly Arkham Knight, suits Spider-Man so much. To be able to just web a guy and throw them up into the air and take them out of the equation without anyone else knowing is spectacular. Think about Spider-Man Shattered Dimensions, the Noir universe. That was great, because you weren't just confined to standing on gargoyles or specific perch tops like in the Batman games. You could just be up on a wall, just crawling on a wall, and if a guy was unawares of you, you could launch a web line down, yank him up, slam him against a wall, and that was it. He was done. And I really like the idea of being able to take care of situations in a way that I want to. I mean, sometimes I'd be forced to use stealth, say there's hostages in the equation or something, but to be able to fight a bunch of bad guys when I could just take them out normally, but I just happen to fancy doing everything stealth-wise, would be great. Especially if the bad guys start saying stuff like, "Oh God, Spider-Man's here somewhere, man, we ain't getting out!" I really love scary Spider-Man. Think of some of the moments where he was going after Kraven and he was becoming the hunter during the, whatever comics I'm thinking of. Spectacular. Now that's all I can really think of just from the top of my head, but I'd just like to finish up saying something. Whilst I've said all these things, and, you know, towards the end it was more opinions, my own personal opinions, than absolute truths, like web slinging and the just incredible mechanics of Spider-Man 2 on the PS2. Even though things like web slinging and having the web strands attached to certain points and momentum and all that, even though it's been screamed for and begged for on thousands of different forums and threads all talking about it, it hasn't come back. And the real problem is not so much money or time, it's people wanting to put their own spin on things. That's the real trouble, I think. Like I said about character designs, if you want to make Hammerhead or Green Goblin or whoever, just make them exactly as everyone knows them, and everyone likes them, and everyone loves them. Make them like that. And yet, we've seen so many movies, and I mean, look at this. Everyone knows this is Superman, but what we got was this. Everyone knows we want to see Spider-Man like this, and yet we got basketball texture Spider-Man. You see, the real problem is people wanting to put their own spin on things, try and make it theirs. They don't want to make Spider-Man or Superman. They want to make, I present Spider-Man, I present Superman. They want you to think of them when you think of that character. This isn't Superman, this is Zack Snyder's Superman. People wanting to put their own spin on things and make the character theirs is the real problem. And I really, really, really hate the idea of people begging and screaming and pleading for these amazing web mechanics and launching around and going around the city as you want to, and then someone decided, you know what I think would be good? If you just press a button and Spider-Man does it for you. I think that'd be good. I think people would really like that. And then no one did. And it's probably going to keep happening. And yeah, I really dislike that. But hey, time and money also factor in a hell of a lot. Chances are the next Spider-Man game that comes out, it's not going to be a labour of love. It's not going to be what the fans have begged for and really wanted for so long. It's instead going to be a, okay, this is the deadline, get this game done by then, and whatever you have, we'll put it out. We just need a Spider-Man game. We just need any game at all, but with Spider-Man written on the front cover. So we'll probably get that, but who knows for the future. Hopefully Spider-Man will finally be given the recognition and the game that he truly deserves. So yeah, that's it from me. I hope you enjoyed this. Until next time, bye for now. Oh, and finally, if you're swinging around at top speed and you go face first into a wall without pressing the wall grab button or anything like that, I'd like it if this happened.